Charlie. What's your question or comment for Cliff?
Two quick questions. Cliff, you haven't mentioned the new electrics, but recently, or not in any depth, and I just wanted to know there's a bunch of fellows who I think along these lines you'll find are working on it. I myself personally worked with John Bedini back in the 80s.
Sure, yeah, I know the name, yeah.
And there is something coming, and that's all I'm going to say. The Southwest, for purposes of survival, I don't know how familiar you are with the Arizona area, but I've been following things of Gordon, Michael, Skelly, and all the rest of them since the early 90s. And I strategically picked east of the Continental Divide, if you will. I also wanted to mention to people that most people don't even know that the Vatican built an observatory here in Arizona, about 50, 60 miles south of us. I don't believe that they picked that particular spot arbitrarily. I think they know what's going on also. And
I agree with that.
Okay, let's let Cliff respond.
Yes.
Yeah. So with respect to safe areas, and one of the previous callers, I kind of feel I was drawn here. I have no idea why I'm here beyond that. So
I'd go with that personally. The idea of being moved by universe is really the way that you need to run your life at this point. For instance, my entire life has been a series of one boat-building fiasco and boat adventure. So I guess I'm driven that way to attempt to get through all of this. Well, I know people that are like you. They're moved to specific spots.
Well, I've always been drawn to the, well, as you put it, new electrics. And we're on a timeline right now. And maybe at some point I want to send you a little present. I'll get with you at some further date on that one.
And you can always contact me, yeah.
Yep. Cliff, you can always go up to Half Past Human.
Moon at halfpasthuman.com.
Exactly.
I read all those that come through, yeah.
Oh, I follow Cliff rigorously now. I was put onto you a while back, so... But anyway, if there's any further information as far as geographical location that you can get out to, I'd like to know. And
yeah,
that's all I have.
Well, we'll all echo that, too.
Okay,
thanks for your call, Charlie. Let's go to Doris on line 2 from Kansas. Hi, Doris. What's on your mind?
Hi.
Hi. You're on the air.
Well, I'm wondering if what Cliff puts out has any relevance to Revelations.
Good
because,
question.
The Lord has, if you read Enoch, it tells how the Lord has control over the stars and the moon and the sun and everything. But I'm wondering, God said that the Christians were not appointed to the wrath of God. And, he does say in Revelations, that the world is going to go through this, what you're accounting, actually.
Yeah, it's going to go through a bad time. Well, let's let Cliff respond to that. Cliff, any relation between what you're forecasting and what the book of Revelation says?
Well, probably, in the sense that, it's all pretty dire stuff as I understand it. So I'm not Christian. That's not my bent or drawing. Universe doesn't move me that way. I've read through the Bible. I've read the Nag Hammadi. I've read some of the source material. I know how the Bible went through the translations and so on. None of our stuff is particularly drawn from that. We recognize that there is that eschaton, the end of times, movement within Christianity, and I pick that up as an archetype, but none of it is driven by Christianity as a religion. So you can, in essence, you can view our stuff as standing independent from that particular lineage. The fact that it may line up is probably just how universe works. Just like frequently a lot of our stuff lines up with astrology, and we don't take any clues from astrology when we're doing our work, and it's coincidental, and it always kind of freaks me out a bit.
Exactly. I mean, there's many roads to the same path.
Correct.
Doris, thanks for the call. Let's go to Ed on line 3 from Saskatchewan. What's on your mind, Ed?
Hello.
Hi, Ed. You got a question for Cliff?
Yeah, I do. I live up here in Saskatchewan in a city of about 200,000 people. And for the last 3 years or 4 years, we've had pretty well a drought. But meanwhile, they're building huge drainage canals all over the place around the city. Is there any forecast of heavy torrential rains coming?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's a known condition we will face over the next 2 years relative to the climate change that's already baked in the cake, so to speak. So the oscillation that set off the climate change, whether we just won't call it global warming or anything, causes huge amounts of precipitation. And just because you have a long-term drought of 3 or 4 years doesn't mean it isn't going to change in an instant, and you're not going to have to deal with 30 or 40 years worth of rain in a short period of time. Look at what happened to that spot in Taiwan. There was one particular area relative to the monsoon that went through Taiwan that was on the backside in the rain shadow. We have such a thing here in the Puget Sound where the Olympic Mountains block off rain, and Sequim, this little bird, gets all the sun and nice weather, and it can be pouring on the rest of us. But anyway, this place in Taiwan was in the rain shadow, plus it had a drought for over 4 years, and then they got 100 inches of rain in, I want to say, about 30 hours. And it was just, horrific. So they can turn on a dime.
You live near the Olympic Mountains. Is that a safe area to live?
I don't know. See, there's the rub. It's safe as a personal issue relative to you and your karma. I know guys that are are raising money, have money, and they're starting to do things like move to areas where they're within a short period of time, say 15 or 20 or 30 minutes driving, to get to an area that's 10,000 feet or higher. I know people that are putting money into buying tracts of land in the Andes at about 7,000 to 10,000 feet in elevation. The Olympics are a problem here in the United States or any place in the United States, and perhaps a lot in Canada is the same way, that anything 10,000 feet is in a national park, so you can't build a survival bunker there. And it is my understanding from the literature I've read that the last few pole shifts that just standing out at 10,000 feet, well, you may not get the wave, but you're going to have to deal with the rains, volcanic ash, 200-mile-an-hour winds, all kinds of hellacious conditions that you're better off sheltering from.
Exactly, you better be underground.
Yeah. So there are those issues, and I do indeed know people that are raising money now to build extensive underground shelters for 15 and 20 people at a time in areas that are about 10,000 feet, with the expectation that they'll be able to get there in a short period of time.
Yeah. I have a son living in Victoria, and you can see the Olympic Mountains practically from his yard. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And I've thought, well, if the conditions aren't too horrific and we're only dealing with a giant sea swell, then maybe after it all settles down, that's where I'd aim my boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Noah's Ark. Ed, thanks for the call. Okay. And Annie, as I promised, let's get to the woo-woo. You have a question for Cliff.
Okay, well, it is really woo-woo, but one of the things I've followed since about 65, one of the secrets revealed in the report talks about that ETs have been and are allowed to enslave humans. Where do you go with that one?
Well, there's the rub is that, boy, that whole area is fully opened up. We even have now, we're starting to get some statistical ramifications on the idea that the ET relationships, the UFO sightings over the U.S. have diminished over these past years they peaked in 1952. And we think it's a direct result of the success of our shadow ops coming up with anti-ET kind of weapons. And we're actually within the early stages of what we had called the alien wars. And our stuff is that it's going to get really, really bizarre, to say the least.
Interesting.
Now, in support of that, I've recently acquired these Generation 3 night vision goggles, and the first night I took them out. And if you want to look up and see what's going on, you can go to YouTube and look up Ed Grimsley, I think his name is, and he's got some excellent video out there. I'm not at that stage where I can produce video yet, but I used his third-generation night goggles on a very clear night here, 12 degrees temperature Fahrenheit, but no wind. And within 20 minutes, I saw all kinds of activity over my head at probably less than 200 miles to, say, 400 miles altitude that was quite clearly not space debris. We had turns, we had delta wing kind of things going between rectilinear craft that were quite huge, I imagine, just because of the time it took these delta wings to merge with them, and other kinds of rather strange stuff. So it's a very busy time up there. And this validates, the idea that Gary McKinnon, the guy in England who tapped into unprotected computers and looked around, and NASA's all bent out of shape, and the secret government's all bent out of shape by it, and they're trying to extradite this poor kid from England. I say kid, he's in his 20s. Any event, though, he found stuff that he related as being fleet-to-fleet transfers for off-planet U.S. Navy, I would suppose you would call it, or Air Force. And the stuff I've seen, if it isn't ours, then, boy, we're really in a world of hurt. And this is only in one day of having the things. Couldn't go out and look yesterday. Or I went out and looked at yesterday at the wrong time and didn't see any activity other than meteors. And then today it's just too socked in to see. But it's amazing stuff. And once I've got it merged to a camera and a telescope, I'm going to start uploading stuff to YouTube.
Well, Cliff, I think